All right, let's talk about one of the most famous stories ever told, Genesis chapter 2. But what if the version you know, the one you think is the story, is really only half of it? Because when you start to dig a little deeper, you find a story that's way more complex and honestly, way more contested than you ever imagined.
I mean, come on. We all know the basics, right? There's a garden, a guy made from dust, a woman from a rib. It's a story that's shaped so much of our world. But what if that version is just one side of a very, very ancient coin?
Okay, let's start with a big one. What if the Garden of Eden wasn't in Mesopotamia? What if its real location, according to an equally ancient tradition, was on a completely different continent? Yeah, we're talking about a radical shift of the entire map.
And it doesn't stop with geography. What if the creation of Eve wasn't some kind of divine surgery on a sleeping man? What if instead, Adam was wide awake on a spiritual level, witnessing the whole thing in a state of divine ecstasy? And get this, these aren't some New Age theories. These are ancient competing traditions.
So, to really get this, we're going to put two powerful readings of Genesis 2 side by side. On one hand, you've got the King James Version, the one that has shaped the English-speaking world for centuries. And on the other, we have the ancient Ethiopian tradition, which gives us a perspective that's just as old, but wow, is it different.
Here's a really cool way to frame it. Think of the King James Version as being like a handheld camera. It's intimate, it's personal, it's zoomed right in on the human drama. But the Ethiopian tradition, it sees the garden as a temple sanctuary. It's a grand, sacred, holy space where humanity's first job was to be a priest. Right from the jump, two totally different worlds. Let's start with maybe the most dramatic difference of all, the actual physical location of the Garden of Eden. And believe it or not, this whole debate comes down to 4 rivers mentioned in the text.
So in the King James Version, you hear about the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. And because of that, pretty much all of Western scholarship has pointed to Mesopotamia, the area around modern-day Iraq. That's the map most of us have in our heads.
But hold on. The Ethiopian tradition points to another river mentioned in the exact same passage, the Gihon. And for the Ethiopian church, this isn't a mystery to be debated. For them, the Gihon is, and always has been, the Abay River, which the rest of the world knows as the Blue Nile.
So look at how this plays out. The KJV says the Gihon flows around Ethiopia, but the exact spot is still debated. The Ethiopian tradition, though, is absolutely explicit. Eden's headwaters are in the Ethiopian highlands. And this suddenly provides a perfect context for the mention of gold and onyx, linking them directly to the known resources of the African continent. This total reframing of the story just keeps going when we get to the creation of Eve. The question is, was it a physical operation or something else entirely?
Now, the King James Version uses the term deep sleep. It means a profound state of unconsciousness. Some have even described it as being like the very first surgery under anesthesia. Adam is completely knocked out while God performs the procedure.
The Ethiopian tradition, however, uses a word that translates much closer to ecstasy or a visionary trance. In this view, Adam wasn't knocked out at all. He was actually elevated into a spiritual state, where his mind's eye could perceive the sacred mystery of his partner's creation. So he wasn't a patient, he was a witness. You see how different that is? And it points to an even deeper question that both traditions tackle in fascinatingly different ways. What, fundamentally, does it even mean to be human?
The King James Version gives us this beautiful, powerful formula. God takes dust from the ground, breathes into it, and boom, man becomes a living soul. It's an incredible idea. We're made of something as humble as dirt, but we're animated by the very breath of the Creator.
The Ethiopian view, though, is more layered. It sees humanity as having 3 parts, what's called a tripartite nature. First, you've got the flesh, from the dust. Second, the soul, which is the basic life force we actually share with animals. But then there's the third part, and this is the game changer. A unique spirit or intellect, the Labbawit, a kind of heart-mind that makes us uniquely capable of knowing God.
So we have a different location, a different creation event, and a different definition of what a person is. So what? Why does any of this matter? Well, it matters because it fundamentally shifts the entire center of gravity of the human story.
I mean, when you put it all together, the picture you get from the Ethiopian tradition is just profoundly different. The geography moves from Iraq to the Ethiopian highlands. Eve's creation goes from a physical sleep to a spiritual vision. Our very nature is understood not just as a living soul, but as a 3-part being. And the garden itself? It transforms from a simple paradise into a holy sanctuary.
And this right here gets to the heart of it. This isn't just about theology. It's about history and it's about identity. Because the Ethiopian perspective places the origin of humanity, the location of that very first sanctuary, and the source of its sacred rivers. It places all of it squarely in African soil. It completely recenters one of the world's most influential origin stories.
And that's the thought I really want to leave you with. It's a question that goes so much further than just ancient texts. For history, for science, for our own personal lives, how does our entire understanding of a story change when we simply change where it begins? Think about it. Thanks for tuning in.